When Sydney's light rail from Circular Quay to the eastern suburbs was first built, it had a rough start. During its construction, it was faced with cost blowouts and delays, but it also faced legal battles from shop owners who were negatively affected by the construction. Disruption from construction of the line had forced businesses to close, left them close to ruin, split their families, or left their owners on medication for depression. That's not even mentioning the fact that when the line first opened, it took 50 minutes to get from Randwick to the city, which is longer than it takes to catch the train from Penrith to the city, and twice as long as it takes to drive the same distance, even avoiding tolls. And when the light rail opened in 2019, the pandemic hit only a few months later. And look, I'm not saying that the tram caused the pandemic, and yet despite this rough start, the light rail has been a massive success. The journey time has been reduced from 50 minutes to 35 minutes, largely due to traffic light priority, which there could be more of, to be honest, and increased speed limits as people got used to the tram. Oh yeah, now that COVID's over, people are finally using it. Its use on George Street has well over doubled from 2022 to 2023. At Circular Quay, Chinatown and Central Station, the busiest stops, well over 10,000 people tap on a day. That's not even mentioning the fantastic effect it has had on placemaking around the city, which in my opinion is the most important part. George Street has been almost entirely pedestrianised between Circular Quay and Chinatown, and a whole lot of nearby streets, Essex Street, Grosvenor Street, Jamison, Margaret, Hunter and Wynyard, have all got the pedestrian treatment as well. There's just something incredible about being able to stand in the middle of the CBD during rush hour, close your eyes and hear only the ringing of the tram's bell, maybe a ticking bicycle chain, a few conversations, and a very distant hum of traffic. Oh wait, hang on a sec. Light rail wasn't only built through the CBD, was it? It also goes to Randwick and Kingsford, so let's go and have a look at what kind of great placemaking has been done using the light rail there. Oh. My real full name is Christopher. Welcome to Footpaths and Corner Stores, and don't forget to subscribe for one free 50-minute light rail trip. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to give a huge thanks to my Ko-fi supporters, Lucas, Stuart VEITCH, Uxwalia, Abraham N, and Building Beautifully. If you want to support the channel and get early access to videos and even scripts for videos, head over to Ko-fi and become a monthly member. While Clover Moore, the Lord Mayor of Sydney, and the rest of City of Sydney Council has been pushing for more tram-driven improvements ever since the light rail arrived, such as more pedestrianisation and an extra stop at Wimbo Park, honestly, it seems like Randwick City Council couldn't care less about the tram's arrival. Before the light rail, ANZAC Parade was a 6-lane road between Moore Park and Allison Road. Now, ANZAC Parade is a 6-lane road between Moore Park and Allison Road. Between Allison Road and the end of the L3 at Kingsford, though, there have been some very solid improvements. ANZAC Parade went from a 7-lane strode to a 4 to 5-lane strode. The terminating stop also replaced a car park. Oh, wait a second. Oh, never mind, it just pushed the car park further down and resulted in a bunch of trees being chopped down. Meanwhile, the L2 turned Allison Road from a 6-lane strode into a 6-lane strode with a slightly more confusing active transport path. It also resulted in the removal of a bunch of trees and green space. But look, a lot of the trees that were removed were not native and replaced with native trees, so it's kind of a win, I guess. And I suppose the speed limit was lowered from the absolutely psychopathic 70 kilometers an hour it was before to a slightly more reasonable 60. But seriously, there were 2 to 3 car lanes that could and should have been removed instead of those trees. Luckily, car lanes were removed a bit further down Allison Road. Adjacent to the Royal Randwick Racecourse, 6 lanes of traffic were reduced to a more sensible 4. Wannsee Road was narrowed to 1 way with a lane of parking removed, and High Street had 2 car lanes removed, but unfortunately it suffered from its fair share of tree removal as well. Compare Randwick City Council's attitude of prioritising car lanes over people and trees unless there was no other choice to City of Sydney's attitude of using the tram as a way to pedestrianise more spaces and plant more trees, especially with climate change's effects up in the northern hemisphere hinting at a hellishly hot summer down here. It's super important that we get rid of heat generating asphalt and cars from our cities as much as possible and replace them with cooling green space. We've also got to decarbonise our transport system as soon as possible so things don't get worse. This means making as best use possible out of the already decarbonised transport options we have, such as our light rail, and where possible, limiting car use and promoting active transport use. Even though they didn't take the opportunity right away, it's not too late for Randwick City Council to do all these things. Here's how they could still do it. So considering that with the advent of the light rail, not as many people will have to drive down ANZAC Parade, we can take a few of those car lanes and use them for something better. Let's take the intersection between ANZAC Parade, Daisy Avenue and Allison Road as a pretty typical example of this part of ANZAC Parade. This intersection has an insane number of car lanes. It also has 4 light rail tracks, because this is where the tram lines split into 2 different tram lines. It has a bus lane and it has an active transport shared path as well as footpaths. It's also strangely missing a pedestrian crossing. Look, I get it. I lose things all the time. I'm sure a quick search through the couch cushions will help us find it. Okay, let's kill this car-centric design and the urban heat island effect. We'll start by untangling the active transport path into a cycleway and a footpath. We'll remove 2 car lanes for this. One will turn into a cycleway and the other will use it for green space that can serve as a buffer between the cycleway and the road. This can replace the slip lanes at the intersection and run the whole way up ANZAC Parade towards the city. We should also add in the missing pedestrian crossing and provide legal, safe cycling access towards Martin Road, since everyone cycles there anyway. Since there's no point having a cycleway that doesn't properly connect to its surroundings, we should also add a cycleway on Daisy Avenue, which is important because it connects to Burke Street Cycleway, one of Sydney's most used cycleways. And it's also politically plausible because it's part of City of Sydney's planned local bike network. Now look, it's all well and good to look at a top-down map as I talk about these changes, but what's important is how it's really going to feel on the ground. What would it look like to make these changes? Well, I've used Photoshop's new and, to be honest, kind of janky generative AI feature to make a few images. Beautiful. Alright, let's keep going down ANZAC Parade towards Kensington and Kingsford. This is where ANZAC Parade gets a little bit busier with pedestrian activity. It's got shops on the side. It has more of a street kind of wealth-making, place-making function rather than the road function that it has further up towards the city. So because of that, we're going to need a slightly different treatment. Weirdly, it's still 2 lanes of car traffic in each direction here, and there are so many missing pedestrian crossings. Where did they all go? Someone should be keeping track of these to make sure they don't run off, right? And these missing pedestrian crossings are especially egregious right next to the light rail because, you know, how are people going to get there, right? They're going to walk. They need to be able to navigate ANZAC Parade on foot. So as you can see, we desperately need to make ANZAC Parade better for pedestrians. This is especially important right now because there are a lot of medium to high density developments going on along ANZAC Parade. And if we have a lot of extra people moving in, seeing that the car is considered the best and most important mode of transport here, what are they going to do? They're probably going to drive. So we need to make it very clear to the new people who move here that the best way to get around is by foot, by tram, by bike, all those good, environmentally friendly and space efficient and safe modes of transport. Because if we don't, ANZAC Parade will probably get pretty congested. So what are we going to do? Well, I think a one-way cycleway on each side of ANZAC Parade will work best here, since cyclists will want to access both sides of the road so that they can visit whatever shops or cafes they want. Now look, this isn't part of Randwick Council's current cycling plan, but they'll be consulting on a new active transport strategy in October. So make sure to subscribe to Randwick Your Say's mailing list so that you hear about it. We'll also need new street trees, of course, to cool the area for pedestrians and cyclists to make it better in summer. These cycling and green space improvements, by reducing the amount of traffic lanes, will also allow for heaps better pedestrian amenity. This will have to be an active design choice though. Continuous footpaths should be built along the side of ANZAC Parade, and to be honest, I think the councillors are going to have a dig through the couch cushions for those missing pedestrian crossings. As well as continuous footpaths, some side streets that don't really need to connect to ANZAC Parade could be turned into nice pedestrian plazas, right? Have a look at Meek Street Plaza. This is amazing. Let's have a bit more of this. Some of the current traffic lighted crossings could be made zebra crossings as well, since they'll only need to cross one lane of car traffic now. If you want to see this increase in pedestrian amenity and like the walking and cycling experience made heaps better in the area, I've got some good news for you. Randwick City Council is currently consulting on a traffic management plan for the Kensington and Kingsford area. So head over to their website, drop some comments, drop some pins on the map, let them know what your experience walking around the area has been and how you think they can improve it. And because looking at a map doesn't give us a whole picture, I've made a few more janky AI images. We've done it, we've fixed Kensington. ANZAC Parade is now ready to serve all its new residents who will arrive soon without adding more cars to the road. Hang on, there is one more light rail branch though, the L2 to Randwick. For 2 of the almost 5 years that I have lived in Sydney, I lived in Randwick, so I've got a few ideas to improve it, to say the least. Randwick's High Street, no, not High Street, it's Main Street, it's High Street, which isn't called High Street, it's called Belmore Road, is pretty fantastic. It's got some great shops, it's right near a park, and it's only 20 minutes walk from the beach. It's got a nice mix of old and new apartments and lots of interesting laneways, but it's in a terrible state. It's constantly clogged with traffic. Loud, stinking, honking traffic that makes it way too hard to cross the road or even have a conversation. The council realised that Belmore Road wasn't fulfilling its potential recently and they decided to fix it. Their solution was to repave the road and otherwise keep everything else the same. Although they are building a nice pedestrian plaza, which I'm looking forward to. But look, we need a bit more than that. See, here's the thing with Belmore Road. None of the cars driving through it actually need to be here. There's a big underground car park for Royal Randwick Mall that's easily accessible from Avoca Street. And there's obviously the light rail stop on the southern end of the street, so the solution seems pretty obvious to me. Pedestrianisation. Some pretty important bus routes do go through here though. They could potentially be rerouted onto Avoca Street, but they could also be kept on Belmore Road. This would still improve it a lot. It would be quieter since a lot of the buses around here are becoming electrified now. And there would also be twice as much space for pedestrians because all the parking lanes could be replaced with footpath and trees and furniture and things like that. To make the road easier to cross, instead of curbs for the bus lanes, we could just have bollards separating them. And then the 2 lanes in the middle of Belmore Road could just be bus and bike only. This improvement of bus and pedestrian amenity could go all the way from the light rail stop up to Allison Road. That way no one could use it as a rat run. So ANZAC Parade and Belmore Road are obviously way better after these light rail enabled improvements, so why hasn't Randwick Council done this already? The answer? Thank you for your recent email regarding the future development at ANZAC Parade. Council's Senior Sustainable Transport Officer has been assigned to investigate this matter. At this time, we expect to provide you with a further response within 6 weeks. Quite frankly, I'm not going to wait 6 weeks before I finish this video. In the meantime though, you can contact Randwick Council yourself about this using the link in the pinned comment. You can also go down to the pinned comment and click the link to give feedback on the traffic management plan for Kensington and Kingsford, especially if you live in the area. And make sure to subscribe to the mailing list of Your Say Randwick so you can give feedback on the new Active Transport Strategy Consultation, which is coming up in October, so not too far away at all. Also, make sure to subscribe to Chris Topher. Feel free to hit that bell so that you get notified when I make another video, because when I do hear back from Randwick City Council, I'll make a quick follow-up video. In the meantime, I will see you in the next video.